Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 16 of A Letter to the King. For those of you new to the series, A Letter to the King is my summary of all the PvP action that's going on the European PvP 1 server. And this week, I have to say I felt like I might needed to do an extended special because what a week it's been. Not only have we had the impact of the new patch with the perks kicking in, some of the fixes that have come in to stop some of the shenanigans that's been going on. But I think we've had perhaps the most fun week of PvP in months. And I'll see if I can do it justice. There's been so much going on. I know a lot of you have been involved in some absolutely rip-snorting struggles. So I really hope I do it justice. And let's see if we can. Where were we at the start of last week? And you should probably get your phone out and take a photo of this because Haiti is on fire. It is it's a Jackson Pollock. Look at it. It's covered every nation in the game has been on here, apart from perhaps the US, and they've not been quiet either. If we look at where we were last week, the French had made a huge push, taking almost the entire spit here on the west side of Haiti. The Swedes have got a toehold on the north, wedged between the Danes and the pirates. The Dutch had been gifted, might be the right word, Port Antonio and Bugle Cay to allow them to enter the fray. The alliance was holding in the Antilles. The Americans were had made a significant incursion into the Bahamas. The pirates, the Brits and the Spanish were slugging it out around Honduras, North Panama. What else was going on? We had relative quiet along the south here. And the stage was set with Haiti being the focus of what would be a smashing week. We'll start off with the Care Bear Alliance update. So for those of you who may not know, the French, the Dutch, the Danes and the Swedes had slugged it out in the Antilles, the Dutch Antilles, for probably a couple of months. They'd exhausted themselves biffing each other. The newbies who'd come onto the server with the recent Steam sales were just getting slaughtered on their own doorsteps. And as a result of perhaps fatigue, the four nations had made an agreement that this would be a bit of a no-go zone as it comes to PvP. A whole bunch of complex rules were put in place as to what you were and weren't allowed to do. And basically they would take their thunder and blood off to the west. And generally that's held, but this week there has been a little bit of a crack. A rogue Swedish clan or two has been biffing French traders. The French didn't take nicely to this. They've got a couple of rogue clans themselves. There was a reprisal attack by the French, taking one of the Swedish ports. Generally, the major organisers of the treaty have just about held it together, and we expect the port to be handed back to the Swedes. But there's definitely trouble at mill, and I know one of the Dutch clans is somewhat underwhelmed with the treaty as it stands in this area. So there's a great deal of strain going on in the alliance, but in saying that, it is allowing for some of the best PvP we've seen in recent times. Player numbers are up, and we're having some absolutely top-notch biffing going on over here. There's a couple of... It's not just the Swedes that have rogue clans. The pirates have some sort of kill-on-sight clans who just run around clobbering everybody. And the Americans have a small clan that just runs around clobbering everybody. So there's plenty of rogues going on. Plenty of player content being done with them, trying to manage this fragile piece over here. But really all the action has centered around Haiti, Jamaica, and the south side of Cuba. And so we'll begin with... what's going on there? Let's go back. Some terrible graphical faux pas. There we go. You didn't see that. We'll begin with the action really between the British and the French. So the French had taken, if you recall, this whole spit. and there was a few French players goading British players, claiming that the Danes, the Spanish, the French, and the pirates were executing a plan called Make Britain Quit, where they were going to pummel the Brits into submission. And it's it's a bit like in sport when you rile a team up, you create this sort of battlefield mentality. And the Brits bound together tightly. They called on their allies, they called on the Dutch, and they called on the Swedes, and even the US turned up to help. And in a series of battles, really this sort of single map that shows just dots changing from blue to red really doesn't do justice. But the Brits have swept the French out of the Spit in Haiti with tremendous help from the Dutch and the Danes, also obviously helping their allies, the French. We even saw small clusters of American players turning up, and I know I was in action when a couple of Swedes jumped on and said, "Hey, we see you've pulled flags, where can we screen for you?" So what's happened is two grand alliances have formed, and we've basically got this sort of northeastern bloc of Danes and French siding up with the Spanish and the pirates, and then from the same quarter of the map, we've got the Dutch and the Swedes siding up with the Brits and the US. So we've got these two sort of huge alliances, and they're tied together with spit and tissue paper. Some of them the alliances are getting stronger as combat. That's what combat does. It sort of binds these alliances. But I know there was a major attack on Tiburon. It was probably the most telegraphed attack in the history of naval action, where the Dutch were trying to move a fleet from, I think it's Bugle K, Bone K, I always get the two middled up, into Tiburon. Everybody knew that was happening. The Dutch at the time held Port Antonio. The French pulled flags against Port Antonio. The Spanish pulled flags against the British. The pirates pulled flags against the Swedes. The Danes pulled flags against the Swedes. It was all on for young and old. The Brits put up an amazing screening channel. Literally, one of my mates in clan commented, you could walk across the cutlasses from Jamaica to Haiti. There was that many little battles going on trying to screen the Dutch flag carrier. The Dutch came out of Le Tourte. The whole attack was halted because the Dutch spotted a big fleet of French Pavels. They piled into that. Reports I heard was that 7 to 9 Pavels were sunk. The Battle of Tiburon wasn't a single battle. The Dutch failed on their first attempt. In fact, they took it and then they were pushed back out. They went back in. A huge battle ensued. The Dutch were actually down on BR. And I think it was the Spanish or the pirates they were up against. It was against the Spanish. They were down on PR. The Spanish, at this same point in time, were taking Port Antonio. They managed to get their ships back into Tiburon. A huge battle ran that, by all accounts, went down to the last 15 minutes, where it was just a frantic fight for control over the towers that would turn the port battle. And by the skin of the teeth, the Dutch managed to take Tiburon, and in doing so loosened the Spanish grip on Haiti. And with the French pushed all the way back east of Binef, all of a sudden that tip of Haiti fell, if you like, to the British coalition. And the French, au revoir to you. So a bad week for the French. Bloody Ronaldo's mob gave them a slapping in the championships. And the British and the Dutch and the Swedes, backed up by the odd American, gave them a slapping in Haiti. All the time this was going on, there were huge battles occurring with the Swedes and the Danes, and although it looks quite stable here, these ports were flipping. At one point the Swedes had all the ports across the north here. The pirates put them in a vice and drove them back. The Danes were attacking, and the Swedes, it was Thermopylae for the Swedes. They haven't got the hugest player base, but they have a good fleet when they get all their players on. And 2 or 3 times they managed to hold the port in full-scale 20 plus port battles. sort of hold the line. It really is all in for the Swedes. If they lose a port, they're in deep doo-doo, because their recovery, when they're viced like they are between the Danes and the pirates, is a real problem. Towards the end of the week, they managed to grab up, I think that's Legolis we used to call it. They managed to grab up a little bit of sanctuary there. And then that was reinforced by the Brits and the Dutch moving into really classic pirate territory around St. Nick, and I can't remember the name of this fella, leaving, is it St. Mark, leaving just one solitary pirate port south of the tip here. And while all this is going on, Spain, again, it looks like, only one port's changed hands, big deal. Every day of the week, the Spanish were having to defend these ports, and a lot of these were first-rate battles. Many of them went down to the timer. Literally, if there'd been another 40 minutes, it probably would have gone one way or the other. There were times where there was 2 or 3 minutes between the BR dropping but not having enough towers, or having enough towers but not having the BR. I really do think these regional, I know they're going to redo all of the port battles, but I'd love it if they just gave us another half an hour, 30 minutes to play these regional battles, because quite often it comes down to you've almost got the upper hand. It's like an arm wrestle. You've almost taken the weight out of your opponent's arm, and then the final whistle blows. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's what makes it more fun. I don't know. Well, I do know. It needs another half an hour. It needs another 45 minutes. The pirates made multiple incursions. Many of these ports flipped 3 times in the week. I have to say, the only sort of disappointing aspect was I didn't think the Danes got involved enough. I know they were fighting the Swedes, but their player base is really struggling at the moment. And as much as I'm enjoying Sweden, I really am enjoying the Swede ability to fight. It's crazy. They shouldn't be on the map, but here they are. And they must have great fun, the 20-odd players who are sort of stoically holding these ports. Now, I know from 4 or 5 weeks ago that the Danes have got some great players, or had some great players. And I'd really like to see the Danes get their chutzpah back together and get stuck in to the Brits. So maybe I wouldn't like that. Maybe that's a bad idea. Good on you, Danes. You have a rest. There was a little bit of shenanigans at the start of the week with dodgy flags being pulled on Port Antonio as blockers. There was more shenanigans with the BR abuse that was going on at the start of the week. And there's been a bit of sneaky buggery with people pulling flags with the smuggler tag on, where they then they get to their target port, and when they reach their target port, they sail into the bloody thing because they've got the smuggler flag on, and then they hop out and plant, and then they sail back in. And it's cheeky monkeys. I don't really like it. So come on, chaps. No need for pulling ally flags. I know the Brits did that a couple of times, but I know other nations have done it too. No need for this sneaking in with a smuggler flag on. I know the pirates have done that a couple of times. And thankfully, the BR abuse has stopped, which I know the Spanish delighted in that in the waters here between Jamaica and Cuba. So let's knock that on the head. I don't think there's a nation that doesn't have shenanigans on its books. But let's keep it a clean fight, no hitting below the belt. I also have to say that the banter between the nations has generally been quite good fun. And, there's quite a few reputable clans and players going around now. So there's quite a lot of chortling going on between the different nations. Some of the fake flags that have been pulled, I would say the Spanish win the prize for fake flag pulling. At one stage at the weekend, I think they were pulling flags. They were pulling flags over here, they were pulling flags over here, they were pulling flags over here, and attacking in different places. So they're tactically strong at the moment, the Spanish. I'm going to take a little moment for some self-indulgence. This is really one of my favourite things with naval action at the moment, is the quality of the player-created content. Quite often, if you read the forums, you can get a little bit, The game's broken, the game isn't working. Well, the game's in development, everybody. It's a three-legged table. They've not given us the fourth leg. The officer perks are in balance. Get over it. They're going to add more officers in 2 weeks' time. They're going to add more perks in 2 weeks' time. The perks have changed the game already this week. Things like it's hard to board and preparation. Things like double charge, which helps you penetrate the towers. Already you can see how the dynamics of the game are changed by the perks. The coward perk on a flag carrier is a great idea. So we can see, in essence, how these perks will very much change the way you sail a ship. So give them a chance. But player created content's fantastic. So we're obviously all on different time zones. And one of the ports here, I can't remember its name, KO something or other. One of the ports here next to where the Swedes had extended out, but then they kept getting blocked up against this port here, which was on effectively the Australian time zone. It was on the 10 to 12 server time, which is kind of prime time Australian time zone. And at the time, the most northerly port the British held was Jeremy. And so a mission was given to the Aussie clans to go and take a fleet basically from KPR, meet up at Jeremy, pull a flag, sail past what at the time was completely pirate and Spanish coded ports, sail within 15 minutes of the pirate capital, come around one of the busiest free ports in the game, and capture this 10 to 12 port. So we pulled together, it was called Operation Balls Deep. We pulled together pretty much about 15 guys from clans and 5 or 6 guys who were just puppies who fancied a bit of a laugh. It was advertised as a suicide mission. Bring the best ship you can lose was the call. And the 20 of us set off, and I expected everybody to die about here. That was pretty much, I'd set that as the high bar. If we could get to about here, well done everybody. I know there was people waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to participate in this madness, and we somehow made it all the way around Le Tourte, and then we had 4 or 5 suicide frigates fanned out ahead of us, and they spotted pretty much a mixed first, second, and third-rate fleet coming in from Mortimer. They spotted pirate first rates coming out of St. Nick and coming out of Le Tourte. And the Brits got to within about 2 minutes sail of their target port, and then they noticed a lone Santee. So bugger the port battle was the call, let's get the Santee. So they got the Santee, and as they popped out of the Santee they saw a Vic, so they caught the Vic and captured the Vic, and as they popped out of that they planted the flag, and then another Vic was seen going into Le Tourte, and not only with that, it was one of the moderator's Vic, so that's a double prize, right? So we chased the Vic down. He actually got stuck on the sandbank on the edge of Le Tourte. He must have been no more than 20 ship lengths from port. And about 15 of us just descended on this poor bugger. Now, I'm very convinced these mods have triple shot or something, because if you'd have seen him barge through the British fleet, it was a sight to behold. I might link an image to the video of the craziness that ensued. And we ended up capturing that Vic as well. And I think we basically decided that was a great success, and given the fleet waiting for us in the port battle, we decided that perhaps it didn't need to be a suicide mission after all. But it was enormous fun. It achieved nothing. It sank 3 first rates, it sank a few fourth rates, we lost a frigate, one of our suicidal frigates did his job and died. But it was without doubt one of the most fun nights, and we had a whole bunch of puppies involved. Nation chat was hilarious. I know Pirate Nation chat was hilarious as well. One of my friends who plays pirates was telling me that we'd made impact in pirate chat. So that was great. So this is the sort of player content that can go on. You can go on these nut job missions. There's a bunch of Brits who sail out of Plymouth bashing French up, for an example, in the same way as there's a bunch of French and Spanish who bash the Brits up around here. So it doesn't have to be content delivered in the patches, although we're all excited about the content that's coming pretty soon with the 2 new ships. and more officers and more perks. That'll be in the next fortnight, and also landscape in port battles, so that should be interesting, and a few more bits and bobs, so that's exciting. What else happened? The French, as I said, they were trying to screen, as were the Spanish, as the Dutch made it into Tiburon. At the same time, Port Antonio fell, and that was a big effort. So towards the end of the week, the British actually launched three concurrent attacks on the Spanish coast. Portobello failed, but they managed to get into, I think, Escondido, Guarma, and I can't remember its name, the other port along here. They were vigorously defended, but finally Port Antonio was returned to its rightful hands. And so very much I would say that the Brits and the Dutch and the Swedes, they can take away the laurels for their efforts around Haiti this week. And the first chink in the Spanish armour, because the Spanish defended the south of Cuba fantastically. I reckon they probably had at least 5 or 6 defences along their southern heel of Cuba, and I think the Spanish are probably the strongest organised nation at the moment of the Spanish pirate, French and Danish alliance. Be interesting to see how the French go next week, having been so brutally pushed back this week. I know they've annoyed the Brits with their claims of Operation Make Britain Quit. What else has been going on? So a lot of this is happening in the Aussie time zone over here, in the Oceanic time zone. But basically the Brits have pushed the pirates out of all of these ports now. The Spanish used to be the lesser of the partnership in this area. They're now probably the stronger of the two. And they've sort of blocked the British out a little bit here and given their pirate friends a bit of a buffer zone to try perhaps to regroup in. But at the same time, and this was a bit of a surprise, no one saw this coming, the Brits moved into Contoy, and then they snagged up a couple of the pirate held islands around here. So all of a sudden the Spanish, although they're blocking for their pirate allies, their back doors open to these ports around here now. And so that's rather interesting. That's basically opened up a second front. And a lot of the forces that are fighting around here are struggling to get second fleets. What you're seeing here is the battles here tend to be 15, 20, 25 fourth rates or first rates, full-on battles. Down here they tend to be smaller affairs. It might be 10 on 8 or 15 on 10 and so on and so forth. At the moment, and this could change, and I'll tell you why in a moment, I feel as though the pirates are being broken in this area. That might change. And it's the Spanish who are now the muscle in this area, but I'm not sure the Spanish can fight on both fronts, and they've been setting these ports on these time zones, so that's rather interesting. That's maybe they think the Brits can't afford to fight two fronts as well, and that's probably true. Now, there is a rumour that the pirates are forming a grand coalition amongst themselves. The pirates typically have relied on 1 or 2 super clans, and with the numbers that diminished a couple of patches ago, they really lost their way. Although there's now talk of the pirates all gathering together and taking it to the Americans, and we saw a little bit of that yesterday, although the Americans defended stoically and managed to hold off. I think 5 flags were pulled against them from the pirates and 2 or 3 flags were pulled from the Spanish. And the Americans pretty much made a port profit out of it all. So although towards the end of the week they probably lost a few ports, they won enough towards the start of the week. So I'm expecting a bit of a pirate resurgence, and we'll see if that comes through. Although the US are not the lay-down misere they were a few weeks ago. So that should be very interesting to see. The difficulty for the Americans are they're trapped in a corner where their allies can't help. So the advantage of the Antilles deal for the Brits is it's allowed the Dutch and the Swedes to come to their aid. The Swedes probably aren't strong enough to put the pirates into a vice, and they're too close to the pirate capital. The Brits are cut off by the Spanish in order to get to the help of the Americans, and would really, it's going to be a long time / never that the Brits can work a way around here. So as much as the Americans are technically part of the alliance, the only benefit they're getting is the pressure on other quarters of the map. In their own quarter, they really are surrounded by, two nations. The pirates, historically, one of the most sort of violent nations on the server, and the Spanish, who are probably right now the best organised mob in their alliance. So that'll be very interesting. Where will the Biffo be next week? Well, let's find out where the Biffo will be next week. Now, you'll notice I've not spoken about fishing. And the fishing report's gone, and that's basically because the PvP's been so good. I've forgotten about fishing. I haven't done a fleet mission all week. I haven't built a ship almost all week. It's just been non-stop PvP craziness. You can log on to the server pretty much any time of the day. There's probably about 4 hours where there isn't raging port battles going on. Where will it be? Well, Haiti. Haiti is where it will be. Super duper Biffo on Haiti. Southern Cuba, I suspect, is going to be a real hotspot. And then the normal areas, de Biff, the pirates and the Americans. I suspect the Yucatan might light up. We'll see what happens around the Gulf of Mexico. That circle should be a bit further up. Will this Spanish bloc be enough to hold these pirate ports from coming under pressure from the Brits? Will the Spanish be able to push back into the Brits? That's what we're going to find out. It's 2 weeks probably till the patch happens, and we get the new ships and the new port content and the new officers. The player base is improving. I think there's a lot of camaraderie going on within the clans. Let's see how that goes. I'm hoping the pirates will give me a link to their TeamSpeak, because I know they're trying to organise a TeamSpeak so they can better coordinate themselves. I'll publish that and give that a yell if that's the case. And I think that's about it. We'll have a quick look at the tally board. The pirates took a shellacking, so they were up to 100 ports at the zenith. They've lost a third of those. The Spanish lost a little bit of ground. That was really only due to the sneaky late attack into Contoy, and finally the fall of Puerto Escondido. The Brits had a great week. On really probably around the Honduras, Mexico area, a lot of ports fell, and also in Haiti a lot of ports fell. And although it looks like very little happened, the French, obviously, they got kicked out of Haiti, not totally, but a lot. And it looks, you look at this, you go, oh, the Americans and the Dutch and the Swedes didn't do much. They were involved in some classic biffo. So don't read too much into the fact that their net change was nothing. And that's about it. I hope I did it a bit of justice. I had a fantastic week. I know there were some huge battles. There were some great saves, some great screening action. Probably for me, that would be the highlight of the week, would be the cooperation between all the nations in their screening actions and their coordination. I hope it carries on into next week. I hope we haven't all exhausted ourselves. I hope you enjoyed the report. Give us a like, give us a subscribe.